the Three Guys podcast with Brett, Brian, and myself. Today, we have a special co-host with us. My brother is here, but he's in the background like the wizard taking notes. So we have Melanie Nazarian, Brian's wonderful life and better half. And Melanie is an advocate. And Melanie, can you give us a little bit of, listeners, a little bit of background of what you do and whatnot?
Sure. So as you said, I'm an advocate, but I specialize in special education. So I assist parents and their children with accessing their educational rights from as early as transitioning from early intervention around 2.5 years old, all the way up through, in Massachusetts, the age of 22, when they transition out of special education into adult services. And I also support students in Southern New Hampshire up through the age of 21 as well.
And how long have you been doing that for?
It's been about 10 years.
Really? And I hear through the grapevine you're very busy.
Very busy. All of us are very busy this year. COVID has really thrown a tough one for all of us.
Yes, it has. Your husband was raving about you about a month ago. He sent me a link to a case that you were involved in. I didn't know what he was sending to me for because he just didn't tell me the background behind it. I thought he wanted me to review it. And I looked down and I saw your name involved in the case and being a positive case for you, which must have made you happy and showing that your work is being appreciated and it's helping individuals get what they need for care.
Yes. Yeah. It's tough when it ends up going to hearing like that particular case did. You know, the goal of any special education advocate is to help resolve disputes at the team level, because it avoids not just the financial burden of moving forward with an attorney in a hearing, but also the emotional burden of it all.
Excellent. And Erik Voigt, who's on and is our guest, he's involved with a Facebook page called, was it Dual Spectrum Dad? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes. And it deals with autism and having children with autism. So this is going to be a great episode for people to learn and for you to share, autism and how it affects individuals. And basically you can teach me and send me some other listeners what we probably don't know. Starting off, you're trying to learn for yourself and then trying to raise children based on what you've learned and do it. How tough is that?
It's rough. It's really rough because one of the things you kind of get to is, okay, things are going to be difficult, right? I don't think you quite understand at first how difficult it can be. Everything is not as simple as it is for, your neighbor or your sister or whoever else's children. It's going to be a little difficult, but you don't actually quite comprehend exactly where that is. And then, it kind of gets to the point where it's not just their lives that have changed, yours have. As a parent, your life has now changed and the direction that you thought you were going in has now took a right-hand turn. And you have to adapt to it.
Erik, when did you receive the diagnoses for your children? At what age and from whom? Who gave it to you? The pediatrician, a neurologist?
Yeah. So what happened is my son and daughter, we strangely enough, and my daughter is far worse, we didn't notice her as much as we noticed our son. He was, 2.5 or so and not talking. He had started saying, words, mommy and daddy and things like that. And then it just stopped. And then there was nothing. So we called early intervention. It was one of the things where we asked the pediatrician and they really are like, oh, he's young. He's probably just not want to talk. He might have a little anxiety or something. And, so we called early intervention in. So they came out to the house and there was 2 of them there and they, do a bunch of different testing and they come up to us, and as one of them is working with my son, the other one is watching my daughter in the playroom. So they then finish what they're doing. They sit my wife and I down, and they're like, listen, this is going to be a little rough, but we suspect he has autism. And again, I don't know what this is. And they said, it's a developmental problem, and this is something that's going to affect him his whole life. We don't know the severity, but you're going to we cannot diagnose this. You're going to need a doctor to do that. So then right before they were leaving, they're saying, but we really want to come back and evaluate your daughter. And at this point, knowing the signs that I know now as an experienced parent, I should have seen she was, the same, right? But we missed it because we were just we're thinking, oh, she's just really young and it's nothing. And when they came back for that appointment, there were 6 therapists there. And that one was rough, because at that point, now we kind of had researched autism and looked into it, and then find out, 6 therapists come over and they tell us, look, she's going to be nonverbal. She's never going to speak. She has self-injurious behavior. She has the whole gambit of what a severely autistic child has. And again, they said we can't diagnose it, but so soon after that, we made appointments with their pediatricians and their doctors. And then once we kind of mentioned autism, they then actually diagnosed it.
So Erik, what I find to be really tricky is that while a pediatrician could, I guess, technically diagnose it, in order to access services through ABA agencies or to get recognition through schools, often parents need to have a diagnosis from a highly specialized doctor, like a developmental pediatrician, a neurologist, a psychologist, a neuropsychologist. And sadly, most of those doctors that are affiliated with the big hospitals have wait lists of 6 months to an excess of 1 year. And so parents get that first visit from early intervention, have their hearts crushed by this possibility, right? Because they don't have an actual diagnosis yet, can't receive intensive services yet without it, and then have to wait an average of a year before they can get it confirmed and be able to feel like they're really diving in and getting their child as much as they possibly can. So in a way, it's fortunate that your pediatrician was able to give that diagnosis for you. And once you had that, what then did you put into place? What were you able to do in addition to early intervention?
So as soon as, he's a really good pediatrician. My kids have only had 2. He was the first one, and he's not a developmental specialist or anything, but we live in a small town, so he's kind of he was a jack of all trades doctor, and their current pediatrician is too. Very, skilled and very knowledgeable of everything. Fortunately, he really good guy. So what he suggested was to, speak to neurology at Children's. We could have went to UMass because we're closer, but, he suggested Children's. So we made the appointment. It did take about 6 months to get the appointment at Children's. And then we started from there and got a neurologist. At that point, we were not really getting any services, so to speak. It was more of, okay, this is what's going on. They did, they wanted to do all their kind of evaluations. They did everything, they did hearing tests, vision tests, everything. And, at that point, my wife and I were just really, really confused still and not understanding, and they were young, again, 3 and 2. So not, there wasn't a lot that we needed specifically at that point. But things kind of changed because at that point we decided that we wanted to move because my wife's parents lived in Florida, and that they were retired and we could get help with the kids. And we made that move, and that was the worst mistake we ever made in our lives. Leaving Massachusetts to go to Florida was horrible. I would not do it. It would take an hour for me to get into the whole torrid story about that, but Massachusetts is one of the top states in the country for autism, hands down, for services and all of that. So come to find out, when we're there, we couldn't get much. The schools didn't provide a whole lot. They did what they called ABA, but it wasn't really ABA. It was just, there were incidences where, they at that time grouped all kids with disabilities together into a classroom, and it wasn't an autism specific class. So there were kids with all kinds of other issues in there, and it just they got nothing out of it. They had a really good preschool teacher. She's awesome. She's from New York, but once they got past that, it was a mess. And we ended up coming back here, and that's when more of our actual services started.